And I would say, welcome back to La Lanterna podcast. Bentornati. How long was that, Matt?
I don't know. It feels like we've been hibernating like a year, or is it 8 months? How long has it been? It's been a
I
while.
think I'm gonna say March,
Yeah.
but I
Okay.
could be wrong. And
Well,
that
we're
was one
back.
episode after a long time again. So I guess I don't know. It's been a tough year for everyone. Obviously, whoever followed us knows that I have a baby, so that's definitely holding up a lot of my time. A
Some
lot.
priorities. Priorities in the right places. But
So
it's
we
good to be
ended
back.
that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've missed Genoa. I mean, I would still follow Genoa even though we didn't have our pods, but these 2 months of the summers are always like the dragging ones because you're like, I want more. I want them back, and I want them back, and it's just like, okay, only 2 weeks passed by. Now it's four. Now it's six, and we're back to Serie A season 2025-2026. So what happened so far? Last season we ended 11th, 12th, which is what we expected after a disastrous beginning with Gilardino. Then we came with Patrick Vieira.
I'd say better than expected. Better than I expected. I thought it was going to be a relegation kind of battle type of a season, but
Wait a
really
minute,
good.
aren't you a Gunner fan?
Yes. I like Patrick Vieira. I am also a gooner, as we say, I guess. But that season, remember, it didn't start off all that strong. So I think a mid-table finish, second year in a row, was a pretty
And
damn good result.
and I still think they pulled back towards the end, so we could have done better points, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, season. Congratulations from a lot of teams or people in general to say that was a good season.
Mm-hmm.
And then the summer comes. So we did some major sells. So who did we lose?
Yeah, it was a big season for us. Obviously, some of the important players that we no longer have, and I'm just pulling up our actual kind of squad list right now and kind of how everything turned out for us. But
Well, we
you know,
finalized. Let me start. I'm going to interject there and jump in. So we finalized the sale of Goodmanson, which was still on the ifs because it
right,
was a loan, onus loan. So they had to pay like 7-8 million or something like that, with
right,
the right to buy. It kind of switched a little bit around. I don't remember now the specifics, but they switched it around with the fixed was got lowered and the bonus got increased just because Goodmanson is still in trial in Iceland with respects to some nasty stuff that.
yeah. Well, for now, for the sake of everybody, we won't talk about it. But it's not a great topic. I'll say
Right.
that much.
Let's say that much. So he's out. He's on our
Yeah.
book as a good sale. And then we lost also just not too long ago De Winter and Bani, which was a
Yeah.
little bit surprise for many people.
De Winter and Bani were two of the more recent ones. We knew about De Winter going out. I think Bani for me was somewhat more surprising. Bani to Palermo, right, in Serie B, and De Winter obviously to AC Milan. And the fee ranges there, I think, all were about what we were thinking. Coney De Winter for 20 million, maybe we wanted 25. I think we only got a few million, almost 2 million for Bani, which at his age kind of makes some sense. But it's interesting, right? Because I mean, this was something I was sort of rattling on about all season last year. We made so many changes, but it seemed like we had constantly kind of we almost forgot about center back, I thought, for a while because we had such a depth for a really long time in that position. And then, you start seeing players depart and not necessarily replacing other players. But yeah, there were a lot of things that ended up happening. We've obviously had some other kind of loan moves and some free transfers that took place. Guvan Yalcin finally is off the books for us. I think he transferred to a club in Turkey. A couple of more, yeah. That one was kind of ongoing for a while. One we were talking about in the group chat earlier today that I had missed earlier was Maturo going on loan to Levante. I'm not familiar with the particulars of the deal, but it sounds like there's an obligation to buy.
It's a right to buy.
It's a right to buy. Okay, good. So they have the potential. And then I think one of the other ones, this was earlier in the summer, just haven't talked about it, but Honest Ahanor was kind of I think it was a necessary but unfortunate departure for us. One of our young, bright players of last season, moving on to Atalanta for about 16 million. So, I mean, the fees there, I think, all relatively in line. 16 million is maybe more than where the market had him at the time, but for us, obviously a really valuable player. But I think one thing we've seen in the business that we're in and how we're trying to keep this club afloat and continue to grow, some of those decisions you sort of have to make. So,
well, yeah, imagine it's that amount of money for someone that is only 17, 18 years old. When you look at the fact of the huge step that we're still working towards, apparently next season will be the one that will be in the clear, or at least in a way that where the club wants to go. And this year was the last one. So we still have that trial against the previous owners or the creditors of the previous owners, which will be sometime in the early stages of next year. So that's also why we get, and we're going to talk about it just in a few seconds, but essentially the new sign-ons that we had are, most of them, you mentioned a few, but most of them are just loan, except a couple, maybe one or two that were either from last year, like Ellertson, or Stanchu, which was a free agent.
Right. And I think a few other folks that are maybe not exactly necessarily noteworthy, but maybe worth mentioning. So Milan Badel, obviously, for many, many years, part of the Russell Blue is now a free agent and no longer on the books, but a grateful servant, absolutely, for this club. Favili, who is a complete asshole, is on to Avellino now. So that's also
who was that?
Favili. Yeah, exactly. So another player, that wage was not nearly as a troubling thing, but that's also off of our books too. And yeah, I mean, a couple other random things. Aramu no longer with us. He's a free agent as well. And nothing, I think, super consequential there. But obviously, like, kind of the biggest hitters were Goodmanson, who I don't think anyone that is closely following the club was ever counting on him actually coming back. And so it was nice to actually have that kind of fee realized. And obviously De Winter. There's some other rumors we can talk about later, but maybe we should talk first about the incoming players now that we've kind of discussed folks who've come in and out.
Oh, for sure. So I would say that we have a whole bunch of new players, especially on the front side. Yeah. So while up until last year, we had difficulties up front. If you remember, Pinamonti was on loan for us. We sent him back to Sassuolo. We didn't exercise our right.
Yeah, that's a good one to mention too. Good call. Yeah.
So 14 mil, we didn't decide to go forward. Also because there was an interview where he wanted to go among the big teams.
That's right.
Okay, so then go to Sassuolo, right? I mean, at least that's what it is so far. Regardless, I mean, he did an amazing. It's just the only little piece of thing that I have against him. Just that silly comment, like you don't do that during the season. But regardless,
yeah, you're right. He was important for us last season. That's fair to acknowledge.
He was absolutely important. He did amazing goals, important goals. He did do the double digits, so it was important to do that. And he was alone up front. Like what I'm trying to say with this is, we had a difficult midfield or a three-quarter to Quartisti. We only had Miretti maybe a little bit, and he was sent back to Juve anyways because I was a straight loan anyways. But he did his job, and we didn't have a lot of force coming up front, and we had difficulties. We were I think the fourth worst or the fifth worst in Serie A when it came to goal scoring. So this year we increased a lot our strength, our engine. That is from the Malinowski situation, which is, it's still an added player if you think about after his injury, and all surrounding around him. So we have, let's start with the striker, I suppose. So whomever was the one that quote unquote replaced Pinamonti is Colombo, straight loan with the right to buy. So loan with right to buy from AC Milan. Under certain conditions turns into a obligation to buy, and he will be sitting in the front, so playing that for that jersey, the old number 9, let's say, with Vitinha, which apparently will be our main striker.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting for us this season. Obviously, Colombo, we're really anchoring ourselves in younger players so far in the dealings that we've made, and Colombo fits that trajectory. I don't know what you thought about him. Obviously, we've not had a ton of chances to see him, but he did start against Vicenza, and maybe was not quite as active as some of the other players that was there. But I think this is going to be an interesting season for us, and it's always kind of fun when you get younger players that have a chance to maybe make their breakout moments within.
Well, listen, that's the whole point. This is his moment. This is his time for him to shine. Otherwise, he's doomed. He has played 100 matches altogether with all the teams that he had played so far, and only 15 goals in total. So that's not too many. Regardless, he's still not in total shape. So I know he was one of the last ones to arrive. So he still has to catch up with compared to all the other players. Let's remember that most of our players got signed in, and we're finishing the list in a second, but most of our players came in early. So that was mostly also Vieira's request, because he wanted to do the preseason as much as possible with most of the players. Obviously, a couple were lost, and we mentioned them already. But at the same time, we wanted to build up this team from the whole entire season. If you remember last season in the summer, even though it was under Gilardino, half of the team was gone after the preseason, which was like, what's the point even to go in a preseason retreat?
Right.
So Colombo, what I was going to say with this one is that he's one of the later ones. So I still think that we owe him to wait to see what he's capable of.
Yeah. It's actually sort of interesting, because I feel like this season, I was looking at our list, I felt like we almost were a little bit more active than we actually were when you look at the actual business that took place this summer for us. Because, the first bit of news, I suppose, if I'm not jumping the gun too much, is Stancu, the kind of forever Romanian captain. And there's some imprints of our new ownership in some of our transfer moves, and this is obviously one of the biggest ones. Coming in, I think he was playing in the Middle East most recently. I can't remember if it was the Saudi league, or I think it might have been a different league. But an interesting player, really kind of very good from a free kick perspective. We saw that in the Coppa Italia with some of his efforts that were there. And you see him coming in at, a free transfer value. So why not take a chance? A really experienced player, and can play maybe more of a creative role when we're going to need players like that. A player that I was not familiar with at all, and there are a couple of players from this club. We were just talking before we went online. One of our preseason opponents, Rennes in France, Albert Groenbeck, or Groenbeek, maybe is how you say it. I'm
going to butcher it.
Yeah, we're always going to butcher it. I think he's maybe from Denmark, but kind of attacking mid type of a player. I also thought he was kind of lively in that first match against Vicenza. That's most of my very little barometer thus far this season has been that Coppa Italia match. But another attacking player, and you can kind of see, as you mentioned earlier, we obviously need to address the striker department in some way. Not that we're completely empty there. And looking at the attacking side of the pitch, there's something to address there too. And these are two signings that both have that flair to them.
Well, absolutely, you're right. Like when you look at Groenbeck, or however you pronounce it, and then the next one we're going to talk about, which is Valentin Carboni.
Yeah.
This is, and on top of that, what you just mentioned with Stancu, however we want to pronounce it, these three are on the front runners, like they're in the front, etc. And we also saw it from the preseason, including the Coppa Italia, and they're like the quality has increased tenfold compared to last season. Stancu, a lot of people gave him like doomed, like a end of his career, and he came here just to retire or something like that. But he's like Badel, stronger, faster, and more front.
Yeah, I mean he was kind of everywhere in that Coppa Italia match, and was just incredibly impressive.
Not to mention the third goal, by the way, we didn't really talk about this Coppa Italia match, which ended 3-0 against Lanerossi Vicenza, was by Stancu, and it was a hurler from outside the box. Beautiful.
He had that goal, and also he contributed to the second goal that was effectively an own goal.
Oh, that's right. It was.
That was his ball that came in that caused that play too. So,
but let's talk for a second about Valentin Carboni. So straight loan from Inter. What a player.
I mean, we were spoiled looking at that match, if that's what we saw. I mean, the first goal, especially when you see him kind of have like that back heel where he lays the ball off and then he runs into the box. And I think, remember, it was Aaron Martin or someone played the ball into him and he just kind of chested it and then finished it perfectly.
So Aaron Martin, sorry, just jumping in for a second. Let's block him. He is under renewal. They're working on it, but let's keep him forever, please.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown his class so much last season, and I think we obviously we depend a lot on our fullbacks, as most modern clubs do, I guess. But yeah, PSA from everybody at La Lanterna: let's lock down Aaron Martin, please.
But yeah, love your kit, love your jersey, beautiful, love it.
Thank you, man. This is like I still miss a little bit the old badge, but I love it. This is, I think, circa 2022 season, maybe.
Love it.
Can't go wrong with Kappa or anything Genoa. But yeah, Carboni looked incredible. We don't have an option to buy him, I don't think, right? It's just a straight loan.
They're talking about his worth is more increasing by the day, but it's around 30 million.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have him for a year. Let's use him. Let's take advantage of him. He's a very eager player, so that's very important as well. He's young, like most of the new signings and so on. So, hey, I'll take him and I'll take advantage of this, anything that he can give us this year.
I mean, at this point, we don't need to tell any other Rosso Blue fans, but where we are, you know, you almost want to just position the club as a great place for players to come and to grow. And if we're able to do that with this person, and we're able to do it with Retegui a couple of seasons ago, like, it just adds to our ability to find more players.
60 million to go to Saudi, like insanity. I'm happy for Atalanta, but I'm disappointed.
I think everybody is. I mean, when you lead Serie A in goals, the only guy that broke 20 goals last season, and you're so young. Like, is he only like 25 or 20, something like that? And then you go off to the Saudi Pro League, and who knows, you know, how long he's going to be there. But he might want to come back to top level football at 27 or 28 and not have really played against great competition for a while. So it's a shame.
Will Gattuso, which is the new coach for the Italian team, that's a whole different topic to talk about.
I mean, that's it.
I don't even want to go there, but will he even be considered by Gattuso now that he's in the Saudi League?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. All this stuff is still kind of, even though this was years ago, it reminds me of the Chinese Super League when that was going on, because I feel like there were a lot of younger, especially like Brazilian players going over at that same time. But
wasn't Pirlo one of them?
Was he? He definitely went to MLS. I don't know if I can't remember, but
anyway. I think so. But I was just doing this because, or maybe Del Piero, or maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, I mean, so we did sign Benjamin Siegrist, so that's another player with Susu's imprint on it, another Romanian player. He came from Rapid Bucharest anyway.
I love this parenthesis. I love this goalie. Everybody in the chat, in our English We Are Genoa chat, knows it because I don't hide behind it. I don't like Leali. So I want Siegrist. I really, really enjoy when I feel secure when he's in the goal. When Leali's there, look at even the Coppa Italia. Like, okay, Lanerossi Vicenza, I really think that there's strong chances for them to get promoted to Serie B because they deserve. They have a very brilliant and an upcoming team and so on. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what's going to be their season, it's a Serie C side, right? So the two mistakes, he did a couple mistakes, and you've been a goalie.
Yeah. They were bad.
Okay, thanks.
They were very bad.
Thank you. In Serie A, you're going to pay for those things. You don't try to get your hand to the ball and keep it in the small box.
Yeah, I mean, that should have been put away for a goal. There's no question about that. And to your point, there were a couple of times where you just have to be much more decisive about that. You either have to catch it or really you just have to parry it away as far as possible. And this like slapping at it with a hand, it just never, ever works.
All you got, I mean, I haven't worked. I mean, I did a few things, but nothing really to the level of probably what you even did. But one of the first things that
didn't do much
with take the ball with your hand, slap it outside in behind the net.
Yeah, I mean, I think he must have been a little bit indecisive in what he wanted to do. I mean, it was weird to me to see him do that because I felt like Leali was the type of keeper that last season in particular was basically bad at everything except for keeping the ball out of the net, which was what you needed him to do as a keeper. So he's not going to play the ball very well. Obviously, he's not going to be very good on the ball. Fine, I don't care. I kind of don't like the modern goalkeeper stuff anyway. But he was usually really sound at like getting positioning and that stuff. I think I remember some rustiness. I don't know if it was last season or the season before when he kind of stepped in and we weren't sure. I think it must have been the season before because we still had Martinez in the squad. And for some reason he started the match.
Last year where we had the goalie from Atalanta and he replaced him because he went and he did the injury, what he had an operation. I can't remember his name now, but
I'm blanking too.
Well, it's at the beginning of the season, whatever the name of the goalie that we had on loan from Atalanta, Skippy, whatever his name was. And now he went to Roma, and Roma now has Gasperini, which Gasperini was the one at Atalanta that got him out of the roster. Anyways, regardless, I think that's when he came more live because the year before that we had Martinez. Regardless, I still think that he is a good number 2. Leali.
Golini you're thinking of. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Yeah, Golini is who you're thinking of. Yeah, so anyway, whatever. Okay, so Siegrist could be a good number 1. We saw some shakiness from Leali in the Coppa Italia. There have been times we've been shaky. Put me down as a Leali fan because he's old school and I like that, but I understand why people are kind of frustrated with him, and he did make some clear mistakes against a lesser opponent that would be much worse in a high profile match. I think Coppa Italia is so weird because you can go so far anyway before you start playing.
Hashtag Leali go out.
Yeah, the Leali out contingent exists. But we have Siegrist, so that was another important transfer. We needed another keeper option, whether he's our number 1 in the future or not. We've talked about Colombo and Carboni. I think the other big one, which this is the most recent transfer we've had, is Leo coming back to us finally. After I can't believe it was only a couple of months that he played in our colors, but Ostigard is back and he's on loan. Most of these players, as you mentioned, are on loan. Actually, almost all of them are.
Right to buy by Ren as well. Bring back.
So
we still have a chance to buy him. I don't think even he is such at a bad price. I think it was like around 8-ish.
Yeah. His market value right now is I think around maybe 10 or 11, but I think the quoted price might have been less. But obviously, anyone who follows the club was ecstatic about that news. And it's so, I think it's fascinating because you look at like how our squad is made up right now. We talked about Boni is no longer there. De Winter is no longer there. Maturo is on loan. Obviously we have Vasquez. We have Mercandali who came in and started in the Coppa Italia match. Of course, Ostigard. And then that's kind of it, right? Like Ochoa, I guess, is the other guy as soon as he comes back from injury.
Yeah, young guy from Belgium, but he's one of the future guys, right?
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of movements happening also in Primavera. Let's don't forget that there's 3 or 4 signings that one of them like outbeat a whole bunch of teams like Barcelona or whomever it was, or Real or whatever that is. Because the new motto, the new approach for the club is essentially signing young players. So these are the under 20, right? Young players that are ready to go into the first squad so they can either come back and forth with the youth and the main team, but also prep them to build them and perhaps eventually sell them. Because let's be honest, for now, or even without the for now, even the bigger teams, eventually you have a player that has been with you for a while, and then what happens? Then you're going to oversell them because that's how you make money.
Right.
So last but not least, Saturday. Today is Thursday, 21st of August. That's when we're recording. Sorry, I got lapses for a second. And Saturday, Serie A starts, and we're playing at home against Lecce.
Yeah, big match. We're fortunate, I think, in a way. I feel like the last several seasons in Serie A, we've had some pretty difficult opposition in the first several matches, and Lecce is an opponent that potentially is one of the few that could go down. They look pretty damn good, actually, if you watch the Coppa Italia match. I know it was 1-0. They went down to 10 men going into halftime, and ended up kind of getting a scrappy goal at the very, very end of the match to make it 2-0. But I think this is going to be it's a good opposition for us to start the season with, but I think they'll be kind of a good test for us too. In particular, if I pronounce his name correctly, Kristovic, I think, is the player that everybody has circled in watching this one from Lecce. He's a very talismanic kind of attacker for them. Had several really good. The rumor is he's going to leave, but has he signed?
Done deal, Atalanta gone.
So will he not be in the side then?
Nope.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if that had been announced before the match or not. I know there were like big rumors about him leaving, so that helps us enormously because he was basically their everything in that match. If you look at kind of the attacking chances that they had and what was going on. One thing I did notice that I thought was interesting is they tend to basically get almost all of their chances from long crosses in from the outside. So without a target man like that, I don't know exactly how they're going to play, but that plays into our hands beautifully that he's not going to be there.
It's still not going to be an easy match. I think Di Francesco, which is the new coach from Giampaolo that they had before, is one of those coaches which in the long run, he's not been doing well, especially with Frosinone. I think it was the Empoli last year and so on. But in the first half of the seasons, they outcast almost to the levels of the top teams as well. And so that means that facing them is going to be quite challenging and difficult. And as you said, I think this is a good test. Vieira, in his press conference today, he said, don't forget, this is not going to be a Coppa Italia anymore. It's Serie A. So every match is important. Every match is going to be very difficult. And it doesn't matter that it's called Lecce and it's not called Juventus. Right. But this is Lecce.
Yeah, and there are some players not available for them, but I'm not sure. I don't know very much Santiago Perotti, but I think they're mostly going to be a full-strength side, as you expect in this time of the season. And yeah, I mean, they're going to need this. As they're looking at this in a similar way as we are. You know, matches like this, you need to get as many points as you possibly can, and it's going to be a good first match for us to really kind of start the campaign off right.
So there's there's an interesting podcast that I listen to. It's an Italian one, interesting and funny at the same way because it's like you get these interesting individuals that are in there, and one of them is called Adriano. I can't remember now his last name. Anyways, he's famous. He's known to say a lot of fibs, but at the same time, he's also in the middle of knowing things that others don't. Regardless of that comment, he did say that. Where was I going with this? I forgot the train of thought here for a second. So he did say that it's going to be a tough season, but also very interested. He's waiting for one more signing. He says in the attacking side, a couple names came in also from the midfield, but hey.
So if you want to talk about that really quick, so there are a handful of rumors from our dear old site Pianeta Genoa, which I feel like I'm on for most of my sources, which probably is good or bad. I don't know. We'll let our dear listeners decide, but it's kind of the big headliner there. So
let me just cast
on that for a second
on this Pianeta Genoa. A lot of people are against it, but the ultimately truth is they're just reporting what others people say. So it's not that they're saying a lot of BS. They're saying such and such said this, such and such said this, such and such said. So it's not doing pure journalism per se. They do have their own, but to their defense, it's just reporting rumors.
There's hearsay and there's Pianeta Genoa, and we don't always know what it is. But one of the rumors that was out there was Neil Maupay from Marseille. So I think an interesting kind of idea. Also, my fellow Genoa supporters who also like Arsenal are going to hate this signing because we absolutely hate him from his time in the Premier League. But I think actually would be really good for us. He's a very scrappy striker, kind of starts trouble a lot of times, gets people wound up. And it kind of towards the end of his career a little bit, but I think would be potentially very useful could be a player that we start with if we're having problems with Patino or Colombo, or could be a guy that we bring in to kind of make something happen in the 70th minute onwards of the match. The other news I think that we've all been talking about, there's not been very much on it, is with Frendrup. So a player we're bracing on seeing depart. Our fee for him, which for me still feels like sort of ridiculously low, like 25 million, is, I guess, a sticking point and hasn't been met by anyone yet. There are some rumors of a club in Spain, maybe, and I think one of the bigger clubs in Italy. We're looking at 20. I can't remember who. If it was Inter.
But if they sell one of their players, I can't remember now off the top of my head who it was. But if they sell that player, then they're going to be all heads over heels for Frendrup. Now, let me just say one quick thing about Frendrup. Great player. We love him. He's been here since the get-go. He was part of that group of Gudmundsson himself and Alstigard per se, and Martinez and so on. So these were like all players that we fell in love with at the beginning. We're like, who the heck are all these people? And then we all fell in love with these people. But at the same time, he's a great player that we need him. But if he gets sold, there's tons of other players that are equally good, if not even better.
Well, it's a timing thing is one of the concerns. It seems like where it's moving right now is, from what I can understand, is that maybe we're not going to move him in this window unless something happens and we get the right valuation for it. But I personally would be a little bit worried. I think everybody would be if he does end up departing, because we do have I think it seems like a little bit more of a balanced squad on the whole this year. You have to say Vieira did an amazing job. We talked about our incoming players. When you think about how many players we got this season that are on loan and just the quantity of them, which is honestly not an enormous amount, the reason why we're not fretting so much is we had so many younger players step up last season. And Vieira was a big kind of part of that, of kind of identifying and helping players along. Some players had some appearances before last season, like say Dufini or something like that. But you see these guys kind of stepping in. Jeff Ekator obviously was a player that kind of had some good moments for us. There's potential with some of these younger guys. And I think that as a whole, we've got a pretty good nucleus, but losing a player like Frendrup would be a really, really big blow for us. So it's just making sure that if that happens, hopefully we have enough time to react and bring somebody else in as a countermeasure.
That's true. We still have a whole bunch of players that can step in, but they're definitely not as him. But we could also, if we sell him, we still have maybe some players in the back behind the scenes that they're still been working on, and or still time to get someone if needed to be. Ellerton is one of them. That is our signing from last year that was on loan. Left, so we bought it from Venezia on January market. We left him at Venezia, and he came during the summer, and he still is doing decent. From that to say that he's going to be in the start 11, that's a total different story. But regardless, so let's go. Yeah. Let's go to predictions for next match against Venezia. Sorry, scratch that. Let's go to predictions against Lecce.
Yeah, so I think it still will be an interesting test for us, and something where we're going to need to show up and get our best result. I think that at the end of the day, it's a good opportunity for our target guys to show up and have a great result. My prediction is that we're going to see a goal from Grönbeek, and potentially we might see Carboni on target again, if anything from the Coppa Italia was to show for it. I don't feel very comfortable or wise leading the season off with a 2-0 prediction. So I'm going to predict a 2-1 to Genoa, because I do think that it's going to be a somewhat of a test for us, and possibly a little bit more nervy with so many players getting the spotlight really for the first time. I believe that. I think there is something different between the Coppa Italia at this stage of where it is versus the Serie A season starting in earnest, even if it's against the Lecce at home. And so players maybe are going to respond a little differently than they did in that last match. But in the end, I think we do have quality. And I personally do expect a win, as kind of nervy as it is to say that to start out the season. But I think that's kind of this is probably what most Genoa fans should be doing at this point.
So I'm going back to what I was trying to say before, and I totally forgot, and I went deviated on other comments that this Adriano Caorsi, that was his name, that he was saying this match against Lecce is a must win. That's what he's saying, and that's what I'm thinking too, because then we're going to have a whole bunch. I don't have the list in front of me, but we're going to have a whole bunch of teams that we're going to be playing against that is going to be less.
Well, this goes back to like our season always for some reason starting difficult. So
I don't know.
our next match also will be at home against Juve, and then we have Como away, Bologna away, home to Empoli, and then Lazio, Napoli. So
it's not going to be easy, right?
Not an easy run in that
so
set.
It's understandable when we say that it's a must win, just because we're trying to put in as many points as possible. I think it's going to be a good show. We still have a lot of exercises and a lot of what I'm trying to say is, like, we need to gear better our front because they're all new. So I was looking at the match against Vicenza. 5 out of 11 are brand new, and out of these 5, the 4 up front were all brand new. So you get Colombo, you get Stanchu, and you get Carboni, and Grünbeck, and so these 4 up front, that's our front, right? So these still need to get used to each other, but I still believe Carboni and Vitinha, which I think is going to be our starting striker, are going to be doing our nice 2-0 as the opening for this season.
I'm not super convinced on Vitinha personally. I think you've heard me say that a couple times, but I could see 2-0 as well. And it's just so interesting because you look at the fixture list, and we've been in so many seasons like this where you're just sweating out every match and sweating out every point. But I think that this squad needs a little bit more credit than to say, like, we've got to win this match or our season is in peril, because we do have enough to go up to a Como or to go even to a Juve and to get something out of those matches. It's just going to be a lot harder. And having 3 points behind us already gives us a little bit more wind. And if we have some tougher matches to start the campaign with a lot of new players, to your point, it makes you feel like you've got more of a safety net. So I would be surprised if the team looked at this in an overly confident way, because I don't think there's any reason that anyone has demonstrated that we're just going to walk all over this team. We finished mid-table last season. That's fantastic. They're promoted upwards. That's great. But they were in the campaign last year too, but that shouldn't be reason to think we're just going to walk all over Lecce.
No, it's true. I still believe that Vitinha still needs to prove himself. I still think that Vitinha was the better striker to be playing against Lanerossi Vicenza, just for the fact that the quality of the player brings compared to Colombo. Colombo's more like your box guy, while Vitinha is more someone that goes and helps and brings it back. Yeah. Especially when you think about the 3 front runners, Stanchu, Grünbeck, and Carboni. I think Vitinha fits better with this trio, but let's wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we can do. And we might even see some different kind of, what will be interesting is how we would work in some of our other players, and if we start to see new formations we've not really seen as much from Vieira and team. I think figuring out where Ekator fits in this mixture is sort of interesting because it doesn't seem like a natural fit unless we're just subbing one of the players out, and I think we might benefit from him starting at some point this season. So there's those things are going to be the fun things to watch as we go through the campaign and see how the team adjusts and responds to everything.
Not to mention Venturino, which is also a very young, talented forward as well, that we saw a little bit last year.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a wonderful call, Fabry. Yeah, Venturino is another guy, I mean, only 19 years old. So we have a lot of potential. We still have players like Macias and Malinowski that are on the bench. But, you know, we're kind of pretty heavy right.
There is depth and there is quality this year.
Yeah. So we'll see.
All right. So I think this is a wrap for our return to the scene, or to be seen anyways. Let's see what's going to happen. This is Saturday. on all the channels wherever you're watching for. You know where to watch your Serie A. I'm not going to talk about anyone and whatever that is, but Forza Genoa, and we're going to say that again at the beginning. And sorry, never forget, always and forever,
Forza Genoa.